Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and we have some more Lord of the Rings stuff coming out here slowly. And as I like to do, typically I'm talking about the legendary creatures because, of course, they can be commanders, which is really impactful for the commander format. And I've already talked about a few if you want to go check out those videos. And I've already talked about the ring mechanic, which is going to be really important for this set, of course, because a lot of this stuff is revolving around the whole ring mechanic. So it's important to know what that is doing before you look at any of these or evaluate any of these commanders. So I encourage you to go check out that video so you sort of aren't lost on what's going on here. Let's take a look at some of these new commanders though, starting out with Frodo Baggins, a green and a white halfling scout 1/3. When Frodo Baggins or another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, the ring tempts you. As long as Frodo is your ring bearer, it must be blocked if able. So, you know, it seems like a lot of, like I said, a lot of this is revolving around the ring mechanic, and in particular these legendary creatures that the ring is tempting you is making it so that you're mostly building around the ring mechanic, right? Because if you look at this commander, other than the ring mechanic, it does literal nothing, right? So what I'm actually building around here as my deck build is the ring mechanic. And, you know, I had done on a deck doctor recently for a patron a Samwise deck. Samwise is their favorite movie character ever, and they wanted me to take a look at their Samwise deck they threw together. And what I told them is Samwise has this ETB where you become the ring bearer, and it, you know, it does get something back into your graveyard, but you're not going to build around that, right? You're not really going to build your whole deck around just getting something back into the graveyard. You can do that a little bit. Mostly you're building around the ring mechanic, right? Whenever you build any of these ring tempting you commanders, you're building around the ring mechanic. So really at the end of the day, you're going to have a whole lot of legendary creatures from this set that are just going to be in slightly different colors. But at the end of the day, you're just building around the ring mechanic. So there's going to be a lot of samey stuff going on here, you know, and in this case, you actually want Frodo to be the ring bearer. I think you do. Like with Sam, you don't want him to. That's what I told him is you want to put other creatures in the deck that you want to be the ring bearer. Sam doesn't make a very good ring bearer. Here, you actually kind of want Frodo to be the ring bearer. I mean, flavor wise, it makes sense. Although this ability is weird because you want your Frodo to be blocked, but with, you know, the whole ring bearer thing, you know, if you look at those abilities, they're all in the attacky theme, right? You want to be attacking, and you most likely want to be getting in for damage as well. So, I mean, I guess the blocked thing does work with the one level of the ring where it makes you sacrifice the blocking creature. But then your commander's only a 1/3, so that's tough. Also, you know, the first level there is can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. So now you're making it so that your commander's really hard to block, but at the same time you want it to be blocked. That doesn't really fit. So that's kind of weird. I mean, flavor-wise, I guess it does make sense, but it's kind of weird that you would have that ability where you want your commander to get blocked. You know, you want Frodo to be blocked, but at the same time you have a bunch of stuff in there with the ring mechanic that want it to not be blocked or makes it harder to block. One of the things they had asked me about their Samwise deck is how do I win the game? And I'm like, well, I think the ring mechanic, you know, that's what you're building around. So that last level there where you're making each opponent lose 3 life is probably one of your best directions for the win con. It's not super quick, but it is, you know, a lot of these ring mechanic decks are going to be very Voltron-y, I think. You know, a lot of them is you're making a creature the ring bearer. It's getting all these abilities, so you want to give it even more stuff so that when it gets in for damage, because you're probably going to be getting in for damage a lot, you're getting even more stuff. Like maybe I got a card draw, or I put a Quietus Spike. Quietus Spike seems like a great equipment in any of these ring bearer decks, right? So here, this is really weird with I have a ring bearer that is, you know, I want to be blocked, but at the same time, all those mechanics kind of don't really fit with that a whole lot. I don't know if I love that. All right, let's move on. And now we have Bilbo Retired Burglar. Of course, the original Hobbit, 1 blue and a red, halfling rogue, 1/3. It's a little weird that he's blue and red. Like, when I think of a Hobbit, I'm thinking, okay, white and green, that makes perfect sense. Here, blue and red? I don't know about that. I mean, he's a rogue, right? Halfling rogue, so the red probably makes sense. When Bilbo Retired Burglar enters or leaves the battlefield, the ring tempts you. So again, we're doing the ring tempting thing. Of course, with this character, flavor-wise, that does make sense. Here we have an ETB and an LTB, so very easy to get through those stages. And again, you know, another issue with a lot of these ring tempting commanders is what you're going to do is you're going to build around getting the ring tempting trigger. However, once you get to level 4, that's it. After that, the ring tempting you doesn't really do a whole lot. All it does is you can name a new creature as the ring bearer, right? Once you get to level 4, that's it. So if I put a whole bunch of stuff in this deck that is going to be making me blink my commander, say for example, like a Conjurer's Closet, when I Conjurer's Closet my Bilbo, it's going to enter the battlefield and leave the battlefield essentially at the same time. So I'm going to get 2 of those ring temptings. So I'm very quickly going to get to the level 4 or chapter, whatever you want to call it, with my ring. And then what? And then it doesn't really do a whole lot. So a lot of the things I'm putting in my deck to get the ring tempting thing going is going to be not very useful later in the game, right? Which is kind of makes for a difficult build around with a lot of these ring commanders. Because a lot of that stuff is like, okay, well, I want to be blinking my commander so I can tempt. Well, I don't really need to do that because I'm already at level 4 and that's the maximum I can get. So blinking my commander after that, all it's going to do is be able to choose someone else as the ring bearer, which in this case, I don't think you're gonna want to do, because whenever Bilbo deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token. So here I want Bilbo, right? And again, flavor-wise, that makes sense. I want Bilbo to be my ring bearer, because I already have a deal damage trigger, and then there's a whole bunch of those other ones with the ring mechanic as well. So, and again, the other issue we run into here is just like with the last one, it's just a 1/3, essentially a vanilla 1/3. Here we again have essentially a vanilla 1/3, no evasion. Die super easy, right? So of course, with the ring mechanic, can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, and having a creature with a low power and a bigger toughness than a power makes it so that you don't really have to worry about your creature dying in combat ever, right? Because if my creature gets blocked by a creature with a 1 power, it's not going to kill my creature. It would have to be a death touch creature with a 1 power in order to kill my creature. So that I don't have to worry about. But at the same time, it's more than I don't want to worry about my creature dying in combat. I want my creature to get in for damage, or it's not doing a whole lot. I really want my creature to get in for damage, so I really want evasion here. So you're really, again, a lot of these ring commanders are just feeling like Voltron commanders. That's essentially, you're just building around, I want Bilbo in play, I want to tempt the ring a few times, and then I want to just load up my Bilbo with a bunch of equipment and stuff and be getting in for damage and get a whole bunch of triggers off of my, whatever the ring mechanics, whatever stage I'm at, I want to be doing that. So again, I think at the end of the day, we have a lot of Voltron commanders here, and some of the mechanics they have work well with what the ring is doing, and some not so much. All right, moving on to Gandalf, Friend of the Shire, and this is I think the second Gandalf we've got now. 3 and a blue, so this one is a mono blue Gandalf Avatar Wizard 2/4 with Flash. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had Flash. Okay, that's not bad. It's not super great. I don't know if you could build a whole deck around that. Having a commander with Flash is pretty good, though. Whenever the ring tempts you, if you choose a creature other than Gandalf, Friend of the Shire, as your ring bearer, draw a card. So now we're in the situation where we have the ring mechanic, but we're not doing it, right? This is sort of like a Avernus, where you have a commander that is doing the cascade thing, but it doesn't actually cascade, so you have to put a bunch of cascade stuff in there. Here, we want the ring to be tempting us, but our commander's not doing that. So we're going to have to put a bunch of stuff in this deck that is tempting, that is the ring tempts you mechanic, because our commander isn't doing it. But if we want to get this trigger, then we have to do that, right? It would be like playing I guess it's like that proliferate commander that whenever you proliferate an additional time, but it's not actually doing that. So you have to shoehorn a bunch of proliferate stuff in there, of course, here. But, how much do we have, right? With proliferate or something, if I build a landfall commander, of course, there's going to be a lot of that support. Here, we're not going to have a ton. How much ring tempting you is there going to be in mono blue just in this set alone? I don't know. Now, I would imagine it's a little bit of an added bonus. Here, I want to make another creature my ring bearer. So I guess, ideally, I want a creature here that is going to, the ring tempts you when it enters the battlefield, which essentially becomes, when this creature enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card, right? Because you're going to make that creature the ring bearer. And then maybe you could play around that a little bit. Here, you're going to build around that ring mechanic a little bit less because you're relying on other cards to do that. Your commander's not doing it. So mostly I'm building around that first part where I can cast my sorcery spells as a Flash. That's not really a great build around. Yeah, I don't know. What's the reason I'm building around this guy? The Flash part isn't super great. And again, the ring tempting you does nothing unless I actually put a whole bunch of stuff in this deck that is doing that. And how much am I going to have how much support am I going to have in this set? I don't know if you're going to have a whole lot, right? So this might be a tough one as a build around. All right, Sauron the Necromancer, 3 black, Avatar Horror, 4/4 with Menace. When Sauron the Necromancer attacks, exile target creature card from your graveyard. Create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 3/3 black Wraith with Menace. At the beginning of the next end step, exile that token unless Sauron is your ring bearer. Okay, so that's really interesting flavor there. Again, I think they're playing more into the flavor here than this actually makes a good commander, because I think a lot of these don't make great commanders. The flavor here is great. I think you're making ring wraiths, right? That's the idea here. And of course, if you don't have the ring, if Sauron isn't your ring bearer, they go away right away. So pretty great flavor. Again, though, we're running into the situation where you're not actually doing the ring thing here on your commander, so you're going to have to shoehorn a bunch of stuff in the deck. And how much are we going to have in mono black? Is there going to be enough mono black support with the ring tempting you in order to make this a viable commander? If you don't have that, it's still pretty good. Like how I'm building around this deck, I am going to put the ring stuff in here, but I'm also going to put mostly, I would say, like a Ravenous Chupacabra, that kind of stuff's going to be great. It's going to come into play. It's actually going to be bigger than the original because the original is just a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, it's going to be a 3/3 with Menace. It's going to be, maybe it gets blocked, maybe it doesn't. I don't care. I mostly want the ETB because I get to destroy a creature. Obviously, I'm going to fill my graveyard as much as I can, and I can do it with discard. I can also do it with those Auric Lore Mage Entomb type of effects as well, which black does really, really well. And then if I can make my commander the ring bearer, then I can get to those bigger, nastier creatures. And you're really going to want creatures with ETBs. Attack triggers don't work. So if I have an Archon of Cruelty, that has an ETB and an attack trigger. So I will get the ETB, which is great. I would still definitely use that in this deck. I won't get the attack trigger because, of course, it's tapped and attacking already. But I do get the ETB, which is good. Good enough to put in this deck for sure. Is it going to stick around? Maybe, maybe not, if I can get those ring tempting effects in this deck, enough of them. Also, creatures with static abilities would be good, like a creature that just has, some great static ability. Static abilities and ETBs is the kind of stuff that I want on the creatures that I'm getting off of this, because they might stick around, but they might not, right? So I don't want to rely on the fact that I might have, like a Shieldred, for example. I'm not going to put a Shieldred in this deck, even though that might seem like a great fit, because if I don't have the ring tempting thing, all I'm getting is a 3/3 creature with Menace and Swamp Walk, which is not great. I'm not going to get any of those abilities off of my Shieldred, right? I'm not going to get the sack ability, which is going to happen on my opponent's upkeep, because this is likely going to get exiled, possibly maybe going to get exiled on my end step. So I might not get anything there. So I don't want to rely on the fact that my commander is going to be the ring bearer, because it might not. And then I just might have a waste. And now I got my Shieldred back into my graveyard, and all I got out of it was a 3/3 Menace creature. That doesn't seem very good, right? I really want the ETBs or some static ability that is going to give me an effect right away, just in case my commander is not the ring bearer. All right, and lastly today, another mono black one that I am not familiar with at all. Lobelia the Baggins. So related to the Frodo Baggins and the Bilbo Baggins, I assume. Someone who knows the story better than I do could maybe let me know in the comments. 2 and a black, halfling citizen, 2/3. So mono black is kind of weird for a halfling. I'm not sure. Is this a bad guy or something? Maybe. Has flash, again with the flash and again with the menace. When Lobelia the Baggins enters the battlefield, exile target creature card from an opponent's graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. Then create X treasure tokens, where X is the exiled card's power. Has an ETB. The flash ETB part obviously works great because you're going to wait for that moment when your opponent loses a big creature. There's a couple things here I don't love as a build around, though. Your commander has an ETB. A one-shot ETB, right? Where after this ETB goes away, my commander is just a 2/3 menace creature, which isn't great. I really want the ETB. And black, is probably the worst color for for blinking and flickering the ETB. It's not great. Maybe red. Red and black both are not great at it. The one thing you do have with black, though, is this what I call the slingshot effect. So like supernatural stamina, Malika rebirth, stuff like that. Those, you're definitely going to want to use those here, because that gives you that sort of pseudo ET. I mean, it is an ETB. I call it a reverse ETB. Instead of I flicker it and it comes back into play, it's going to the graveyard and coming back into the play. You get the same effect. You get to reuse your commander's ETB again, which is what you want. And that in particular is what you want. Like a Conjurer's Closet might not be great here. I mean, it could work because it is a creature card from an opponent's graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. So you can kill your opponent's creature on your turn, then flicker your commander with the Conjurer's Closet on the end step, and then use this ability. Sure, definitely could do that. The slingshot effects might work better because, of course, then you could just do board wipes. And whether I cast a board wipe or my opponent does, now I get to use the supernatural stamina to bring my commander back into play. And then, of course, a whole bunch of my opponent's creatures have gone to the graveyard, so I get to choose the one I want to exile. That's okay. The downside here, first of all, mono black treasures, not a ton of support there. That's not super great for treasures. If I was doing a mono-colored treasure theme, definitely red would be ideal. Not only because there's a lot of support in red for treasures, but there's also a lot of artifact support in red. And again, black, not a super great color for treasures. Ruthless Technomancer comes to mind. That's a great mono-black card for treasures. There's not a ton. There's a little bit. Obviously, just having treasures in general is good. The other thing I don't love about this commander is you are exiling a creature and you care about its power. And of course, usually a creature with a big power is also going to have a big mana value. So at what point am I going to cast my commander here, right? If you think about how you're going to play this deck, your commander's sitting in the command zone. You're waiting for that moment to cast your commander. Early in the game, they're going to have low-powered creatures. So my opponent has a Secure Tribe Elder. They sacrifice it to go get a land. Now's my moment. I can flash in my commander, but I'm only going to get one treasure token off of that, right? And then, a couple turns later, my opponent has a creature with a power 2 that dies. Now, when are you going to pull the trigger? Am I going to want to get two treasure tokens? That doesn't seem like a great use. Like, I don't know how many uses you're going to get off of your commander. And again, the slingshot effects work good, but you need your commander to die in order to do that. So you either need to cast a board wipe or you need to have a bunch of sack outlets in your deck. So I don't know how much I want to be doing that. And, what's worth it, right? I'm looking at the commander here and I'm thinking, what is worth it for my commander? Certainly I want at least 3 treasure tokens because that's what I paid for my commander. I paid 3. So I need a creature with at least a 3 power. And of course, this has to be an opponent's creature. It can't be mine. So I need a creature. I mean, it would be fantastic if it was you too, because then I could just Phyrexian Dreadnought, have that go to the graveyard and create 12 treasure tokens with it, right? You can't do that. It has to be an opponent's, right? And commanders that are relying on your opponents to do stuff are always, a lot of times can be difficult. When are you going to pull the trigger? I would be really curious, for anyone who's thinking of building this deck, what's the first time I'm going to cast my commander? The first time I cast my commander, I flash it out to get those treasure tokens. What am I waiting for? Am I waiting for at least a 3 power? Because then I'm getting 3 treasure tokens, which is what my commander cost. Do I want to get more than that? It's a tough one. You're going to be sitting there, I imagine, a lot with this commander going, okay, when do I pull the trigger? 3, is that enough? Maybe 4? Maybe I want to wait for a bigger one. You're relying on your opponents to play big creatures, which is not super great to rely on when you're waiting to actually get your deck going. Not a really great build around. I don't think it's okay. I would say that the D&D mono black treasure commander that just came out is probably a way better mono black treasure commander if you want to be doing that. But maybe someone really likes this character and they want to do that. Not a lot of great commanders here. Again, flavor wise, I'm sure it's great. And maybe that's what more people are looking for with these characters. Here, this is a commander channel, right? EDH deck building. So I always look at these characters as how are they as build-arounds, these legendary creatures, and not a lot of super great build-arounds here. Again, the ring tempting you commanders are going to be very much just building around the ring mechanic, which all of those legendary creatures that are dealing with that are going to do. You have a couple commanders here that are dealing with the ring mechanic but aren't actually tempting you, which is a little bit difficult. And then that Lobelia, it's not a super great commander all around, I don't think. So not a lot of super great commanders here. Just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, though. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.